from Arrow. And we're here today while our delegates right now are off in the World Cafes speaking about comprehensive education, we wanted to use this session to give you a window into what the session's been like today at Bali, what the mood's been like, what the youth delegates have been up to. And I first wanted to turn it over to both of you to say, what brought you to the Global Youth Forum?
Would you like to go first? Arrow actually wrote one of the papers, one of the thematic papers on sexual and reproductive health and rights. Mm-hmm. And so that interest and being young people within the organization was kind of how we ended up here. Mm-hmm.
And what is your role here on the ground?
Okay, so we're here to support the forum generally, specifically with media and reporting, so kind of getting a feel of how the delegates are doing as far as making progress towards the discussions and contributing back to the talks towards the ICPD goals and the agenda, and also wanting to participate as young people in the forum, because it's rare that it happens. It's only every few years and so forth.
So while you're here, will either of you get an opportunity to make recommendations and to participate, or do you have to stay outside as being from Arrow?
No, we're able to participate fully, like everyone else at home.
Yes.
We're allowed the opportunity to register online as virtual, delegates, and just even interacting with people during the plenary sessions. We're able to make comments, and the general atmosphere is pretty optimistic, and everyone's very eager to share ideas and thoughts and take them back into the
plenary sessions?
Not the
World Cafes.
World Cafes
The World
sessions.
Cafes.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Lost my tongue. But yeah.
So you mentioned that you're doing some media outreach. Have you gotten a chance to speak to any of the delegates here today?
Yes.
And what have your impressions been? What's the mood like here?
I think everyone's really excited to be here and have a real chance to kind of contribute to the global development agenda. It's something obviously that all of these young people are passionate about, and something they don't often have a chance to participate this directly in. So the mood is very optimistic.
That's great news, and hopefully the mood is optimistic online as well, and we keep this upbeat mood over the next 2 days. So the other question I wanted to ask you mentioned that Arrow authored the paper on sexuality, families, rights, and well-being, which I know is going to be discussed tomorrow in the plenary and in the World Cafes. And I think this issue is really at the heart of what UNFPA does, and is really at the heart of the ICPD agenda and of the review. So I was curious if you could just provide maybe a bit of a preview into some of the issues that you expect to come up in the context of your paper.
Sure. So the paper itself focuses really on a human rights, gender-sensitive and southern perspective, because that as an organization is kind of what we stand for. Things that are important in that sort of context: comprehensive sexual education, access to services in a meaningful way, so looking at social barriers as well as practical economic barriers, which often gets missed when in analysis.
And really, just as it is sexual and reproductive health and rights, thinking about reproductive health as a right and framing it in that way, and really being able to push for improvements in the status of sexual health across the globe from that perspective.
Oh, that's really amazing. And can I ask you one final question?
Sure.
Based on your experiences, I'm just curious, what do you think is the biggest challenge to overcome in this area specifically of sexuality and rights?
Well, there are a lot of issues to overcome in that area.
Pick one.
One of the main ones, I guess, is the rise of religious fundamentalisms kind of across the world.
Or even extremism.
Yeah, extremisms. Yeah. And ways of interpreting things that are monolithic, whereas, you know, we know people have a diversity of experience and people also have a diversity of relationships with their faith. So keeping those ideas in mind when we talk about sexuality and reproductive rights is really important.
And cutting across cultures, I think that's really going to be a big challenge for people to come together on consensus on how to make sure the recommendations, if any, come through in a solid way, kind of incorporate that reality and still are meaningful enough to everyone that's participating.
Right, there's always the fear, right, that you get just the least common denominator, and we really hope that everyone can really propel the agenda in a really meaningful way, but that you said can cut across cultures and religions and geographies. Well, thank you both for joining me. This has been great, and to everyone for watching online. And we will be back shortly to discuss the consensus on recommendations for staying healthy. So, thank you.